Okay, we want to make sure that all these connectors are plugged back in. So go ahead and plug all the connectors back in that you took off when you took the fender and stuff off. They'll kind of only go in one place, so go ahead and plug those in. I like to kind of keep the wires in a circular pattern around here, because later on when we put our seat bracket on, we're going to go ahead and wire tie these up on the seat brackets. So anyway, these are the two from the rectifier. Make sure those are plugged in. And then let's see, there's a green wire over here that comes off the ignition switch. Make sure it kind of comes up the side of the ignition switch there. Plugs in. Then lastly, the solenoid, the starter solenoid. It still may be mounted to your fender, so go ahead and pull that off. It looks like that. And then we want to go ahead and hook the wires back up. And this is the way they go. Let me zoom in here on the camera if I can. Okay, if you'll notice here's the solenoid. Okay, the red wire attaches to this side. That's a hot wire, by the way. It's always hot even when the ignition is off, so keep that in mind later on. So anyway, the red wire on that side, the black wire is on this side, on the big terminal nut. And then if you'll notice the yellow and black wires here, and the black and yellow, or black and white there, I think, yeah, it's plugged in that side. It's not real critical on any of these if they're plugged in exactly in the right spot, because it'll work either way. But you may want to go ahead and plug them in that, or hook them up that way. So go ahead and tighten those up, plug these in, and then we'll continue on. Okay, just a quick look at the other side of the wiring here. Let's see, now you've got these 4 wires here. We'll use those later to hook up the tail lights. And then you've got this wire here too, so kind of keep those down the left side of the bike there. And then there's the another picture of the wire coming out of the ignition. Kind of just loops in between the frame and the ignition there. And then lastly, there's your solenoid. There it is. That'll be connected to the seat pan here in a minute, so we'll be back. Okay, we're going to go ahead and assemble the seat bracket. So anyway, this is what it looks like. This is the main seat bracket, sheet metal piece. And this is the right side. This is the tail light and the seat bracket also. This is the one that has the big circle on it. And this is the left side. So go ahead and grab those, and then we'll be right back. Let's go ahead and assemble this just like we see it here. If you'll notice, this is the signal light, or excuse me, the tail light bracket there on that side. It's important that you get these on the proper sides here. So the slot should be going down through the center. And then if you'll notice, I used the bolts that were in the pieces there. Be sure and use the long one on the top and the short one on the bottom. Same on this side. Long and then short. It's kind of black, so it's a little hard to see, but anyway, and then use Loctite on those, so because you should never be able to take them apart again. So go ahead and use Loctite, and let's get that assembled. Tighten those bolts up good. Then we'll show you how to put it on the bike. Okay, next grab your, this is the front seat support, which also holds the gas tank down. So anyway, grab this bracket and remove these 2 screws, the big screw sticking up, and then take the tape off the other screws, and then we'll be right back. Okay, we want to go ahead and mount this bracket to the back of the gas tank here. Go ahead and use these long bolts here. They'll go down through the rubber grommets and into the frame. Now one thing that may help, if you can't line these up very well, sometimes the rubber grommets in front of the gas tank are new and they're kind of stiff, and then these holes won't line up very well. So you can always put a screwdriver down in the frame rail. There's a little lip. You can pry that forward a little bit. Kind of help those screws find those holes. You may even want to get a flashlight and look down in there just to make sure that the screws are going to go down in the holes okay. Anyway, it's a little tricky, but once you get them, it's just time to go ahead and snug these up. Don't get too carried away. Just snug them up a little bit. Don't twist them too hard, because the nuts down inside the frame aren't very big. So just snug these up, and then next step, we're going to go and see these there's 2 adjustment screws on the side of the bracket there. I'm going to go ahead and just run those down in just where they hit the frame. There again, don't twist them too hard. Just take an Allen wrench and run those set screws down just to where they hit the frame. And that should be it. Go ahead and do it on the other side. And then we'll be right back. Okay, next up, now that you have these set screws just running down just to hit the frame, just a little bit of tension on them, let's go ahead and just put a little teeny dab of Loctite in the holes, just enough so that it'll ooze down into the threads there on just those 4 set screw holes. Don't put them on these 2 here. They're going to be for mounting the pan later. So just put a little bit of Loctite in those 4 holes just to keep those set screws from backing out. So do that and we'll go on to the next step. Our next step is to go ahead and remove the tape on these 2 screws on this big bracket that you fastened together just a minute ago. So go ahead and take these screws out. And what we want to do is we want to actually just kind of test them in the bike. Make sure that the threads in the back here, at least they'll get started fairly easily down in there. This is down in the bottom of the wheel well, you might call it. There's a screw here and a screw hole there and there. This is that cross brace that just goes just below the area you cut off. That's where that's going to fasten, is right down in there. So let's go ahead and make sure those screws go in there just a little bit, and then we'll proceed. Okay, before we mount the seat bracket, see if you can try to manipulate these wires a little bit to get to where this solenoid is about in the middle of the bike like that. It might be over to the side, so you can try to manipulate those wires so it's going to end up mounting about in the middle right there. So anyway, and then you want to maybe put a rag over the top of this opening for the air cleaner here, just in case you drop the nuts down inside there. You don't have to dig them out there by taking the side cover off. So go ahead and do that, and then also remove the 2 screws on the bracket. These 2 right here, just go ahead and take those out because we're going to mount the solenoid to those 2 holes there. So we'll do that, and then we'll go on to the next step. Let's go ahead and mount this plate to the motorcycle now. Let's see, the main thing you want to watch for is to make sure that the brake light wire down here, it goes up the side of the frame here. Make sure that that's to the right side of the boss that you're going to mount this plate to down in there. You don't want that to get pinched in between that boss and that mounting screw there, or it might not work. So go ahead and make sure that wire is running to the right side, and then go ahead and put the bottom 2 bolts in there that you trial fitted before. So go ahead and you don't need to tighten them up, just get them started. And then go ahead and put the front 2, these 2. Just go ahead and screw those in and get those started, and then we'll show you how to finish tightening it up. Okay, let's go through the tightening sequence on this plate here. First of all, go ahead and tighten the 2 bottom bolts down in here. Those are the 2 that you trial fitted before, so go ahead and cinch those up good and snug. And then the next step we want to do is loosen this bolt here. This is an adjusting bolt. It fits into a slot. Just go ahead and loosen that just enough to where it slides back and forth a little bit. Then I'll show you how to go ahead and tighten that up. So we'll be right back. Okay, what we want to do now is we want to push this plate forward as we push this bolt back and tighten it. So you may need some help here. Danny's going to help me do this, so we'll go ahead and show you how to do it. Now, one thing is to use the box end of the wrench when you put it underneath there. If you don't, then you'll never get it back out once you tighten it up. So go ahead and put the box end under there, and it's a 9/16 socket on top. So go ahead and he's going to slide that plate forward. I'm pushing backwards on the bolt as I'm tightening it. Get it good and tight. Okay, that's it. Okay, now that you've tightened this up, you may want to just double check and make sure that the bolt is seated against that cross member underneath there. The idea of this is as you sit on the seat, it'll want to pull this plate to the rear, and you don't want to put too much pressure on these bolts up here. So the idea behind this is that this bolt goes down and hits that cross member and keeps that plate from moving too far back. So it's kind of important that that bolt's nice and tight and it's against that frame in there. So I'll go ahead and double check that, and then we'll continue on. Okay, now you can go ahead and mount the solenoid, the starter solenoid, to the plate here. You can just go ahead and use the screw on this side or the other side, whichever one's easier. It's much easier to get the nut underneath on this side. Make sure you use the nylon nut that we give with the kit so it won't vibrate loose, but you don't really need to use both. You could use just push the screw through there while you tighten this one just to keep this aligned if you want. So go ahead and mount that, and then we'll be right back. Okay, the next step on the wiring is to, before we put the battery in the bike, we're going to go ahead and put something over this lead right here on the solenoid. I just hate that being open there because that's a hot connection there, and it's hot all the time whether the key's on or off. So go ahead and put some tape or something over that, even just for now while we're wiring the bike, because if you set a screwdriver or just touch a wire or something on there, it'll blow the fuse. So go ahead and just put some tape over that just to shield that. And then go ahead and slide your battery in. And then the way you do this is you go ahead and hook your positive first, and then your negative. So go ahead and hook the positive side first, and then the negative. It's kind of the opposite on the taking it out. You always take the negative off first whenever you're taking the battery out. So go ahead and do that, and then we'll be right back.